Rajim Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. I am Professor Dr. Ashfaq Ahmed, Associate Dean, Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, as well as HOD, University Institute of Physical Therapy, University of Lahore. On the behalf of management of Afro-Asian Institute of Medical Sciences, as well as University of Lahore, I once again welcome you all on this wonderful platform of Afro-Asian Institute of Medical Sciences for upcoming series of free webinars. Upon success of previous webinar of Professor Dr. Asif Hanif, we once again welcome Professor Dr. Asif Hanif Sahab, who has done his PhD in biostatistics. He's also director biostatistics department of University of Lahore. He has published more than 200 articles in different well-renowned journals. He has also supervised many postgraduate and undergraduate students. One of the very dedicated and committed faculty member at University of Lahore. We really feel proud to have him on board. So I'm also thankful to Professor Dr. Dramirgilani Sahab, who is Chairman Board of Governors of Afro-Asian Institute of Medical Sciences, who has given us an opportunity to share the knowledge in the form of free webinars. So before wasting any time, I would like to give this an opportunity to Professor Dr. Asif Hanif Sahab to please carry on his lecture. That is an insight into research methodology.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today's session is an insight into research methodology, one of the more important and major content of any research writing. Previously, the session was on data analysis in SPSS, and today we will discuss few tips and few issues related to research methodology. First of all, you all are postgraduate students, and I consider you all are involved in research methodology, research writing, and research teaching. First of all, we need to know what is research. As the bookish definition, and many books discuss that research is a process of arriving at solution through the planned and systematic collection, analysis, and interpretation of the data. And mainly, the concept behind the research methodology is to search for the answer to the problems. This is an art of scientific investigation, or many authors says that this is the discovery of knowledge and the discovery of knowledge gap, and to fill it with the evidence. This is actually a careful, critical inquiry in seeking new facts. This is an ordered or scientific effort to gain new knowledge. For me, one of the most important and appropriate definition for research is a movement from known to unknown. The movement from known to unknown means when there is a research gap, and when you want to discover something new related to your field, you need to explore the things, you need to introduce the things, and you need to fill the gap that you have done through the literature review. So research is an interpretation of facts and revision of existing theories or laws in the light of new facts or evidences. Traditionally, many times we are told that research is basically searching again and again. As the word is formulated with two components, re plus search. So re plus search means searching again and again and looking for the new knowledge. You can also go for the existing knowledge, and you can also discover the new knowledge. Two types of research has been introduced in many medical sciences, like confirmatory research and exploratory research. In confirmatory research, the knowledge is existing, and you just confirm in your own population with your own limitation, with your own strength. The other type of research is exploratory research, in which you actually explore the new things after seeing the gap in your literature. Why research is necessary? Research is necessary for many reasons, like we need to generate the new knowledge to get the evidence. Research is very much mandatory for better understanding shift in consumer attitude and taste. For example, you are working for any business community, you are working for any food industry, you are working for any lab industry, you are working for any product industry. So you need to see the consumer and the attitude of the participants or the subjects. Research is mandatory to reduce the operational cost. Many a time you have seen that in the research related to diagnostic accuracies, your basic purpose is to reduce the cost, to reduce the time, to reduce the related sources, and to increase the efficacy and to increase the profitability of the product. The research is necessary to enable management to prioritize the strategic options for the future. So research works with the help of 5 Ws and an 8 structure. I many a time focused on these 5 Ws, like who, what, where, when, why, and how. For example, I tell you few of the component of the research philosophy of 5 Ws and an 8 structure, like who are the participants, or you can say who is doing the research. What is your objective, where you want to apply the results of your research, when is the appropriate time to collect your data, and when is appropriate time to do the research, where you want to do the research, what are your targeted population, and who are your research. Why you want to do this research? Because you have already identified the research gap, or you want to explore, to do the exploratory research. And how, what are your material and methods, how you will execute the research. There are broad two types of research. One is qualitative and other is quantitative. In the quantitative research, it deals with the numbers, structured data, it tests the hypothesis, it involves the statistical analysis, while on the other hand, the qualitative research deals with the unstructured data, it focuses the group discussion, it generates the hypothesis, and it can deal with the thematic analysis. I have given a very clear picture of qualitative and quantitative research here. Like in qualitative and quantitative research, you can see the comparative synthesis of the qualitative and quantitative research. The aim of qualitative analysis is complete detailed description. In the qualitative research, we design we have a design that emerges as the study unfolds. Researcher is the data gathering instrument. You have many a time encountered with for qualitative research, we make abstraction, concept, and hypothesis from the detail. That is called inductive. I will tell later, and I will explain the inductive and deductive process. In the qualitative data, it is part to be observed data insider's point of view. If I tell you the very simple and precise approach to conduct the qualitative research, let's take an example. For example, there is a discussion about any political point, and if you switch on and see 15 news anchors and take their opinion and compile them, this is actually the qualitative research. If we discuss the epidemic of COVID with the 20 experts and their discussion, if we publish, it is actually the qualitative research. In quantitative research, we actually go from the abstractions, concepts, and hypotheses in advance and check if you can find them back in the data. For example, in qualitative data, we do not have the hypothesis. Qualitative research helps you to generate the hypothesis. But in quantitative research, the hypothesis is already there and you need to test it. Qualitative research is part to be observed data, insider's point of view. As I already told, this is actually based on experts' opinion as well. And in quantitative data, objective observers outside point of view. You need to have the point of view from your participants. If I tell you in summary, the difference between qualitative and quantitative research. In qualitative research, it actually starts from the theory. We test hypothesis, we observe and confirm. And on the other hand, you can see observation pattern, tentative hypothesis, then we generate the theory. There are many research manuscripts in which the students are very much confused many a time. For example, if we ask our attendants to differentiate between the concept of book and journal, many of them are unable to differentiate or define the difference between book and journal. So there are few academic and few non-academic research manuscripts like book. Book is considered as non-academic research manuscript, and synopsis, proposal, thesis, dissertations are considered as academic manuscripts. And the journals are both academic and non-academic, in which different kind of research articles are published. Now, the major point and major difference between the book, synopsis, proposal, thesis, and journals must be taken into consideration before you conduct your research. Many a time we need to see, we have to be very clear between the proposal and the synopsis, between thesis, dissertation, between journal and the books. So I request you all to explore the difference between scientific writing or these scientific manuscripts. I have made a little effort to tell you people what are the major contents of research manuscripts, and the major contents of research manuscripts are generally their title, abstract or summary, introduction, literature review, objective or objectives, hypothesis, material and methods, result, discussion, conclusion. Along with the conclusion, few headings are already also attached, like limitation and recommendation. I didn't discuss here, references and appendices or annexures. But many a times it is noticed that we are not very much clear what are the content of synopsis, what are the content of thesis, dissertation, what are the content of research articles. So I have made a little effort here to differentiate them. Like title is necessary for every kind of research manuscript. I am talking about academic now, academic contents, academic manuscripts now. So I am not discussing the contents of a scientific book. So we will see these differences between synopsis, thesis, dissertation, and research articles. Title is mandatory for every type of scientific manuscript. Abstract and summary is not required in the synopsis, but recently I have seen a few universities are encouraged students to take the summary in the synopsis before their introduction. But in many of the institutes, many of the uniform requirement, summary and abstract is not part of the synopsis. In thesis, dissertation, and article, abstract and summary is mandatory. Without abstract and summary, neither thesis nor research article is completed. Introduction is mandatory for every type of academic scientific manuscript, and review of literature may be included in the synopsis. And if I talk very clearly, for our institute, like Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, University of Lahore, we encourage students to write the literature review based on the previous published studies. But in thesis, it is mandatory to be the part of thesis and dissertations. And in research article, usually it is given in the introduction, and separate heading, mostly it is not required. The objectives and the hypotheses are mandatory part of synopsis, and the hypothesis, if needed, it must be the part of synopsis. And in thesis, dissertation, and research article, objectives are mandatory, and objectives are usually written in the last paragraph of introduction in a research article. But for synopsis and thesis, dissertation, these are written separately. Material and method is very much important and core part of any type of academic research manuscript, and it is very much important to learn about the contents of material and methods I have discussed in the upcoming slides. Result, discussion, conclusion is not part of your synopsis, because in synopsis you are proposing the concept to be executed in future. But in thesis and dissertation and research articles, result, discussion, conclusion are mandatory part of your these two research manuscripts. Without these two research manuscripts, your documents cannot be completed, and references are major and core part of the synopsis, thesis, and research article. Many a times I ask the students who are working on your synopsis and thesis or articles from the postgraduate students the difference between references and bibliography. So I encourage you people to find the difference between reference and bibliography. Appendices are part of synopsis like performa, like measuring tool, like any specific questionnaire that you have adopted for your research, for your outcome measures. And in research article, it may be part of your research article. So title of manuscripts, like I have discussed here, the content of manuscripts. Now I'll try to give a few description over title, abstract, summary, introduction, review, literature, objectives, hypothesis, and all other contents. The title of manuscripts mean the phrase you need to introduce for the research area. So the title of manuscript must be able to describe the things to do. It must be self-explanatory and should describe the research purpose. Must be descriptive, novel, relevant to the researcher's field of interest. It is feasible to do, and it must be interest of researcher and the supervisor. Here I want to make a comment. Many a time the topic is not of interest of student or nor in the interest of supervisor. If the topic is not in interest of supervisor or the student, many a time student fail to fulfill his fulfill the criteria to complete his research. So it is very much important and mandatory to explore the interest of supervisor, to see the interest of supervisor, and supervisors must see the interest of their candidates, because this is a full and mutual understanding to complete the research project, whatever you are working on the proposal or working on the research article. So title must follow the finer criteria. The good topics are encouraged to follow the finer criteria. The finer criteria means the title must be feasible to do, must be in interest of the candidates and supervisor, must address the novelty, must fulfill the ethical consideration if the topic is to be executed on the animal and life human subjects, and it must be relevant to the discipline. It is in our experience that many a time the student come with random topics, and after discussing, it is seen many times that the topic is not relevant to his field. So it is mandatory to see the relevancy of your topic with your field. The next content is abstract. The abstract is very much important part of your research thesis, dissertation, or research article. It must be written in 250 to 350 words, and many institutes encourage the student to write their abstract in these headings or mixture of these headings. You can write a paragraph without heading. So you need to, the methodology, the important methodology must be given as part of abstract. Then important findings according to the major objective must be given in the abstract. Conclusion, many times we make many conclusions according to the number of objectives, number of findings. So Here in the abstract, you need to give the main conclusion. Keywords are actually the words which can help the reader to explore or to know more about the topic area. Keywords which are not used in the title must be given, and 3 to 5 keywords are encouraged to be given. Here you can see it is also the problem of students or the researchers. They want to know which and how the keywords should be given. So here is a recommendation. You can explore the mesh keywords. Mesh keywords, you can write your title, your major your major words of the title in mesh, and then the mesh will suggest you few keywords you can give in the abstract. So how to write introduction? General introduction usually needs the definitions, epidemiology, magnitude of the problem from the literature, similar of different statistics. Like if you are working on the epidemiology, or you are working on the prevalence study, or you are working on the characteristics of COVID patient, you can write simply about the COVID, what it is. Then you can give its epidemiology, you can give its statistics from the literature, and the rationale of the study, significance of the study must be given at the end of the research. Why this study was, rationale is actually why this study was needed. Many a time we mix objective and rational, significance and rational. So you need to be very careful. You need to be very confident to write your rational. Rational mean why this research is mandatory to be done. Mostly we identify the research gap first, then we write the rational. If we are working on the exploratory research, and if we are working on the confirmatory research, then you can take help from the research gap that is given usually in the wide statistics. Like one study reported the prevalence of tuberculosis is 3%, and other is has reported 15%. Now you need to reconsider from your own population, is it closest to 3% or 15%, so that you can make the policy, you can recommend the policy makers about the exact statistics taken from your community. So in rational, you can also discuss your future prospects and benefits of the research to the community. Review of literature, very much important part of synopsis or thesis dissertation writing. This part is very special in its nature, as we have to gather all the related information or existing knowledge about the associated subject, field, or area. It usually contains the results or findings of previous reported or published work in form of articles, book, and experiences. So in medical sciences, it usually contains the contents depends upon the objectives. Like in medical sciences, mostly if I talk about the dissertation or thesis, anatomy is given, epidemiology is given, risk factor is given, treatment options are given, diagnostic criteria is given. If your area of interest is diagnostic through CT scans, ultrasonography, MRI, then you need to put more focus on your diagnostic modalities and to identify the research gap so that you can justify your topic. So most important thing is research gap through the literature review. If I tell my experience, 90 students to give their research gap. 90% researchers are failed to identify the research gap. They just take a random topic without studying the literature. And when we ask them, what is the research gap in this topic? Why you want to do? The interesting answer most of the time is, my supervisor allowed this topic. My supervisor want to do on this topic. My senior told and suggested me to do in those topic. And our reaction is, if your supervisor has given you, allotted you, senior has given you, you did not have studied the literature in detail, then how you will execute your research? They show us the parent article and say, I will work just like this article has worked. So my dears, put more focus on to identify the research gap so that you can justify your topic. And this is very much important when you're working for the PhD research. topic. So the other important content of research writing is objectives, primary objectives, secondary objectives, and there are few criteria to assess your objectives. The most important and widely used criteria is SMART criteria. So what is difference between primary objective and secondary objective? Primary objective is actually your main objective, which motivated you to execute the research. Primary objective is your main concept of the research, what you want to do. Then when you see, when you explore, when you read the literature, your literature suggests that if you are working on this objective, you must explore this objective as well. For example, characteristics of COVID patients is my primary objective. Then my secondary objective may be the characteristics of COVID patient, a comparison in male and female, comparison in urban and rural community, comparison in the young and elderly patient. Look, my objective was only to see the characteristics, clinical characteristics of COVID patient. But later it came into my mind, why not to compare it with the other confounder, other effect modifiers, other variables. And these characteristics, these variables must be addressed very clearly in your methodology and performance. So SMART criteria must be implemented for your objectives. Like you can write operational definition. Many times operational definitions are written as a dictionary definition. No, these definitions are not actually dictionary definition. Here I want to quote an example. Students usually or researchers usually write the definition of infection is the invasion of an organism body tissue by disease causing agents, their multiplication and the reaction of host tissue to the infectious agent and the toxin they produce. This definition is actually the dictionary definition, and it is not written in measurable form. How it should be written? Like this. Infection, it will be labeled if one of the following feature is found: pleural discharge from the incision or an abscess found, culture of fluid or tissue taken from the wound positive for organism. Look, here diagnostic criteria is involved, or one of the sign and symptom of infection, which are pain, if there is presence of pain, tenderness, swelling, warmth, redness, or the incision dehiscence. So this is actually the exact way to write your operational definition. There are many qualitative and quantitative research designs like observational study design, experimental study design. Here, if you want to know about the contents of material and methods first, the contents of material methods are study design, setting, duration, sample size. And many a time we face problem to choose the appropriate study design. The study design is either observational study design or experimental study design. You need to first of all see which kind of research you are going to take. Is it experimentation or is it only observation? If it is observation, choose any of them. If it is experimentation, choose any of them. I'm not going into the detailed contents of study designs because it will be covered in our next talk. That is research discussion from A to Z, I think the title of the webinar. So if any of you want to learn about the details of quantitative research design, I request you to join again. Here I have given a layout for better understanding of the research design. Here the important thing is to tell you how to calculate the sample size as one of the major part of your material and method content. The sample size is actually mostly depends upon your objective. Most of the time students are not clear how to calculate, how to choose the sample size. Sample size actually based on few things. One is your own objective. Two is findings from the previous literature, not the sample size from the previous literature. Students say, no, that article has taken 50 subjects. This is the reference, I will also take 50 subjects. No, this is not the criteria to select the sample size. The criteria to select the sample size, be very much clear about your objective, about your outcome, what actually you want to do. is your outcome qualitative or quantitative? If qualitative, choose any one of them. If quantitative, choose any one of them. I have just given example. If your outcome is qualitative, any one of them formula can be applied. If quantitative, any one of them formula can be applied. And what actually the parameter need to be incorporated to calculate sample size is the findings from the previous literature, that those are published in any article or book. So for example, you want to estimate the prevalence of backache during, let's suppose, pregnancy. So you need to know the prevalence of backache during pregnancy from the previous literature, from the published literature. If you found the prevalence of backache from 5 to 30%, it is reported. The ideal is go nearest the calculate your sample size that is nearest the 50%, because you will get the maximum sample size from the proportion those are near the 50%. So I will discuss this in detail in the webinar. I told you, if you want to learn, please do not miss that. Then in material method, the most important, another most important content is sampling technique. You can either choose probability sampling or non-probability sampling. Among the probability sampling, simple random sampling, systematic sampling, cluster sampling, stratified sampling may be chosen according to your own objective. If you want to do a survey, choose simple random sampling. If you want to conduct a research from the participants who have already enrolled and they are lined up, you can take systematic sampling every 5th, every 6th, every 7th. If you want to compare the phenomena and from the community through a survey, and if you want to compare those phenomena within the homogeneity of the participant, take stratified sampling. If you do not consider the homogenesis, then take the cluster sampling. If you want to take the sampling based on non-probability, based by violating the chance randomness, you can choose convenient sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, snowball. If you're working with the rare diseases, choose snowball sampling. If you want to fulfill the proportion according to the percentage from the community, like 10% disabled, 5% Hafiz Quran, 30% from Fatah, 20% from Balochistan, 10% from Punjab. Based on the population proportion, you can go for the quota sampling. And if you want to choose the sample based on your own judgment, based on your own experience, based on your own purpose, take the purposive sampling. If you want to take the non-representative sampling, you can ignore the representation of the sampling, then convenient sampling may be chosen. Convenient sampling mostly be taken in case controlled study design. So the next heading is sample selection criteria. It is inclusion and exclusion criteria. You are very much familiar with inclusion and exclusion criteria, but most of the time we make the mistake to write in inclusion criteria. If it is written, I will take smoker, do not write in exclusion, I will not take smoker. 70 to 80% students or researchers write as an alternative exclusion criteria. If you are taking male, definitely you are not taking female. So female should not be part of your exclusion criteria. Exclusion criteria must be based on effect modifiers, which can modify the effect of your outcome. Do not reverse based on your confounder, based on the other things that can affect, that can disturb your research findings. In the methodology, you need to tell how to perform procedure of data collection, which information you need to collect, define your procedure, scoring criteria. One important thing in synopsis and thesis, operational definition must be written as separate heading before objective. For research articles, it must be, operational definition must be incorporated in methodology, and it is not separate heading before objective. So statistical analysis, we can help you. The person from biostatistics can help you which kind of statistical analysis you need to use. And there will be another session on descriptive and inferential statistics. The inferential statistics is actually will be covered in next webinar. So if you want to learn more about the section of appropriate statistical analysis technique, I request you to join again. And in research article and thesis dissertation, results are written in separate chapter, like description of the result along its appropriate frequency, percentage, and number. P-values, if needed, must be given. Some table and figures according to the journal criteria or your own institute's criteria must be given as part of result chapter. In discussion, there must be discussion. In discussion, there must be discussion. And we have experienced this in discussion chapter, there is no discussion, only the replication of the result and others' results. If you have given your own result, then compare this result with others' result and give the reason, give the logics. If your results are same, give the logics. If your results are different, give the logic. You can discuss your methods, you can discuss your results, you can discuss your sample size, you can discuss your criteria, you can discuss your tools, you can discuss your measuring criteria. So you can discuss everything in your discussion. For example, I say the prevalence of muscular dystrophy in Pakistan is unknown. You can say the reason of unknown prevalence of muscular dystrophy may be due to the reporting of the patient to the neurology department or the specific department. The prevalence of muscular dystrophy in Australia is given in 1 out of every 3,500 newborn. This is only possible that they have the good reporting system. They have the good diagnostic criteria. People usually report to the physician or the specific department. So you have given the reason why it is not known in your population and what is known, why it is known in the other population. So compare your result with others, national and international data, give clear statements whether your results are similar or dissimilar to the previous finding. Discuss with the limitation and other considerations of your own research. So conclusion must be given on the basis of your results and findings, and you can recommend to the recommendation basically made for the society, based for the patient, based for the policy making, based for the departments, should be made for the future researchers. We are mostly failed to write the recommendation. Why we are failed to write the recommendation? Because we do not know whom to address while recommending these findings. So see your area. For example, if you are working in pediatric medicine, target and write these recommendations for the pediatrician, for the policy making, for the hospitals. If you are working for, if you have found some good diagnostic accuracies of some modalities, target your appropriate reader, appropriate writer, appropriate person whom you want to recommend these findings. So limitation of your study must be given at the end, and it's sometime part of your research article, and usually it is part of your research thesis and recommendation. References must be given using EndNote, and inshallah in that last session in which we will discuss the research discussion, I will give you some tips how to write the references using EndNote. There are few reference styles like APA, Vancouver style, Harvard style. Seek the guideline, read the guideline of your own institute and the journal in which you want to publish your article, which referencing style they want to incorporate. Many a time we write in Vancouver, but they need Harvard. We write in Harvard, they need in Vancouver. If you have worked on EndNote, then there is no issue. It's a matter of single click. But if you have done it manually, it is difficult. So read the given guideline, criteria of publication, criteria of thesis submission, then you will be easy, and it will be feasible for you to write it once as per the requirement.